Where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments below. Before we dive into this heartwarming story, hit subscribe so you'll never miss the most courageous dog tales we share every day. Imagine a place where over 2 million people move through every single week. A chaotic ballet of hurried footsteps, the distant echo of announcements, and the constant low hum of jet engines. To the untrained eye, it's just a normal Tuesday at Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport. But for a black Labrador named Scout, it was a world of scents, a tapestry woven from human stories, fear, and sometimes pure, unadulterated evil. This is the story of how a dog, a big clumsy tail-wagging goofball, uncovered a sinister truth hidden in plain sight and changed the course of countless lives. His name was Officer Scout, and he wasn't your typical K9. Unlike the fierce stoic German shepherds that patrolled the terminals, Scout was a gentle giant, a Labrador with a perpetually happy expression, and a tail that seemed to have a mind of its own. His partner, Officer Maya Evans, a veteran of over a decade on the force, was the only one who saw beyond the playful demeanor. She knew that beneath that friendly exterior was a mind sharper than a diamond and a loyalty as deep as the ocean. On this particular morning, their shift was a slow crawl of routine. They were sweeping Gate A32, a quiet corner, handling regional flights. Passengers hurried past their faces, a mix of impatience and relief. Maya felt the familiar rhythm of her job, the predictable cycle of security checks and passenger questions. And then, Scout stopped. He didn't just stop. His entire body went rigid, every muscle tense. The low, happy wag of his tail ceased. A deep, guttural growl rumbled in his chest, so low only Maya could hear it. His large dark eyes were fixated on a scuffed, unassuming duffel bag tucked beneath a row of seats. "False alarm, Maya. That bag's been there for hours." A fellow officer, Officer Ramirez, called out with a weary shrug. Maya didn't respond. She had learned a long time ago to trust her partner's instincts above all else. Scout's signals for contraband were distinct, but this was different. This wasn't the alert for drugs or explosives. This was a cry for help. The bag sat there mundane and harmless, a prop in a scene of everyday life. But to Scout, it was a beacon of distress. And as Maya knelt down, her hand hesitating over the zipper, she heard it too. A faint, almost imperceptible sound that turned her blood to ice. A whisper. "Mama?" The sound was so soft, she almost convinced herself she'd imagined it. But Scout's intense stare, his silent, desperate plea, confirmed her worst fear. With a hand that trembled, she pulled the zipper. What she found inside wasn't a bomb. It wasn't drugs. It was something far more horrifying. It was a 3-year-old boy curled into a ball, his tiny hands over his face, his small body shaking. His name was Leo. The crowd gasped. The air froze. But Scout simply sat his mission complete, his gaze unwavering. He was the only one who knew, the only one who heard the silent plea. But the horror didn't stop there. As Maya scooped the child into her arms, a quick-thinking agent on her team discovered something chilling. Tucked into a side pocket of the bag was a small, almost invisible GPS tracker. It wasn't a device to find the bag if it got lost. It was a tracker for the contents of the bag. And it was still active. That single simple discovery turned this one rescue into something far bigger. It was a breadcrumb, a digital trail that led to an entire sprawling network. This was not a random act. This was the work of a sophisticated, organized ring. The bag was a vessel. The child was a package. And the story that was about to unfold was a race against a ghost that moved with the precision of a machine and had a cold-hearted indifference to human life. And it was a race that would only be won with the help of a 4-legged hero. The world Maya and Scout stepped into after Leo's rescue wasn't a simple case of a missing child. Oh no, that familiar sigh of relief you'd expect from a successful rescue. It was fleeting, replaced by a cold dread as the true nature of their discovery began to unfurl. This wasn't just a lost boy. This was a chilling thread in a much larger, darker tapestry. Imagine a single drop of rain. Harmless. Right now, imagine that drop revealing a sprawling underground river. That's what Leo's rescue felt like. The GPS tracker found in that duffel bag so innocuous was the first terrifying clue. It pinged its location not to a desperate parent, but to an anonymous server. Then another and another, tracing a digital ghost across state lines. This wasn't a desperate parent's attempt to retrieve a lost bag. It was a tracking system for human cargo. The first immediate step was to identify Leo. He was terrified, barely able to speak beyond whimpers and the occasional soft utterance of Papa. His parents, the Jensens, had reported him missing 2 weeks prior from a bustling street fair in a small, idyllic town in Oregon. For a moment, let's just pause and picture that agony. The frantic calls, the sleepless nights, the way every single passing face blurred into a hopeful, then heartbreaking, "Is that him?" Their world had shrunk to a single unbearable question mark. Now, thanks to Scout, a fragile answer had appeared. But the relief of reuniting Leo with his parents was quickly overshadowed. Scout, ever the diligent tracker, picked up a fainter yet distinct scent trail from the duffel bag itself. It wasn't Leo's scent, but something else, almost metallic, mixed with a faint chemical odor. This led Maya and a small team to a forgotten service tunnel beneath Phoenix Sky Harbor, a place rarely used by passengers. There they found remnants, a discarded janitor's uniform, a cheap, untraceable burner phone, and a small, nondescript keycard. The chilling realization began to dawn: the traffickers weren't just using public areas. They were exploiting the very infrastructure designed to keep people safe. They were ghosts in the system, moving through restricted zones, unseen, unheard, their movements as precise as a surgeon's. This was no amateur operation. The keycard, a small plastic rectangle, became their next lead. It was a generic access card, but under high-tech forensic analysis, it revealed microscopic residues that linked it to a series of other airports across the Southwest Las Vegas, Denver, and even a small regional hub in rural New Mexico. The scope of the operation widened exponentially. What was truly horrifying was the calculated banality of their methods. These criminals weren't using shadowy alleys or complex smuggling routes. They were using airports, the very places we trust to be secure. Why? Because in the sheer volume of human traffic, their victims became invisible. A child in a bag is just another piece of luggage, another statistic in the constant flow. This was a deliberate strategy of concealment through immersion. It preyed on our complacency, our assumption that security means safety. Further investigation into the burner phone led to a surprising discovery: a series of encrypted messages that once decoded pointed to a seemingly legitimate travel agency based in a strip mall in Tucson, Arizona. Global Journeys, the sign read, promising exotic vacations and unforgettable adventures. The contrast between its cheerful facade and its dark purpose was sickening. It was a classic wolf in sheep's clothing scenario. These weren't desperate, impulsive criminals. This was a network built on cold, hard logic. The broker, as he would later be identified, understood human behavior better than anyone. He exploited our trust in familiar systems. He knew that people are less likely to question what looks normal. He understood the concept of noise as camouflage. In the cacophony of an airport, his heinous actions blended seamlessly into the background. His operatives were carefully selected, often individuals with access, like the janitor whose discarded uniform they found. They were paid well, offered anonymity, and indoctrinated into a horrifying belief system that dehumanized their victims. They don't run the first time, one operative would later confess. They trust. And that makes them easy. This chilling quote perfectly encapsulated their predatory mindset. It wasn't about desperation. It was about calculated exploitation of innocence and trust. The more Maya and her team uncovered, the more horrifying the truth became. Leo wasn't an anomaly. He was one of many, and somewhere out there, hidden in plain sight, the architects of this nightmare were still operating. The initial rescue was just the first domino to fall, exposing a terrifying pattern that stretched far beyond any single airport or any single missing child. The ghost in the system had been glimpsed, but to truly hunt it down, Maya and Scout would need to form an unlikely alliance, taking their fight from the quiet corners of airport terminals to the dark web and into the very heart of a meticulously constructed criminal empire. Operation ShadowNet was about to begin. The discovery of Global Journeys, the seemingly innocuous travel agency in Tucson, felt like peering through a tiny keyhole into a vast, horrifying conspiracy. It was the first solid lead, a tangible location, but it was just the tip of an iceberg that stretched far beyond any single state line. Maya and Scout, along with a newly formed federal task force, were now officially launching Operation ShadowNet. Imagine the weight of the world on your shoulders, amplified by the silent, knowing gaze of your canine partner. That's how Maya felt. The stakes were impossibly high. They weren't just chasing criminals. They were hunting shadows that stole innocence, leaving behind only shattered families and whispered fears. The keycard and burner phone data, combined with information gleaned from Global Journeys, revealed a disturbing pattern of activity across the Southwest and beyond. Las Vegas, Denver, Sacramento, even a small, sleepy airport in rural Ohio, all showed suspicious activity linked to this network. Maya and Scout became road warriors, flying from state to state, their every movement dictated by the faint scent trails Scout meticulously followed. Picture the grueling pace. Red-eye flights, cramped hotel rooms, endless hours in surveillance vans. Maya, fueled by coffee and sheer determination, worked herself to exhaustion. But Scout, he was tireless. His nose, a biological marvel, was the single most powerful tool in their arsenal. He'd sniff forgotten luggage carts, trace invisible paths through cargo holds, and pause at the most unlikely spots, his body tensing his low growl, confirming their suspicions. "He's not just a dog," a grizzled FBI agent once muttered watching Scout work. "He's a damn compass for evil." This journey was not just physically draining, but emotionally scarring, as each new clue brought them closer to the unimaginable suffering of stolen children. The clues, painstakingly collected, eventually converged on a man named Arthur Sterling. On paper, Sterling was a retired linguistics professor, respected and reclusive, living in an idyllic mansion nestled deep in the rolling hills outside Athens, Georgia. His online presence was benign articles on ancient languages, donations to local charities. He was the epitome of an upstanding citizen. But Sterling wasn't just a retired professor. He was the broker. His mansion, far from being a scholarly retreat, was the sophisticated nerve center of the child trafficking ring. The idyllic setting masked a horrifying truth. His extensive knowledge of linguistics and secure communication allowed him to build an untraceable encrypted network on the dark web, connecting buyers and sellers of human lives. This was the ultimate betrayal of trust, the ultimate perversion of intellect. "He weaponized his brilliance," Maya whispered, staring at Sterling's innocuous photo. It defied belief. How could someone who dedicated their life to the beauty of language be capable of such unspeakable cruelty? It was a chilling reminder that evil often wears the most pleasant masks. The task force received a crucial tip. Sterling had one final shipment scheduled for transfer. A 4-year-old girl named Chloe, abducted just days earlier from a daycare in Nashville, was slated to be moved through Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport within the next 12 hours. The clock was ticking. The FBI cleared a private jet. Maya, Scout, and a skeleton crew of elite agents were airborne within 40 minutes. The briefing on the plane was tense, the air thick with unspoken urgency. Chloe's photo, a smiling face with bright red pigtails, flashed on the screen, a stark contrast to the grim faces of the agents. This wasn't just a mission. It was a desperate rescue. At Hartsfield-Jackson, the operation was a masterclass in silent coordination. Undercover agents blended into the throngs of travelers. Maya, with Scout tightly leashed, navigated the labyrinthine maintenance corridors beneath the main terminal. Scout's nose was a blur, twitching, sweeping, processing 1,000 cents a second. He pulled Maya forward, his focus absolute, bypassing storage rooms, locked offices, and buzzing electrical panels. Then he stopped. His body went rigid. A low, guttural growl vibrated through his chest, aimed squarely at a nondescript metal service door. The scent was unmistakable fear combined with the faint sweet smell of a child's shampoo. Chloe was in there. "She's in there." Maya breathed, her hand already on her sidearm. Agent Prescott, the FBI lead, gave a curt nod. "Go." 2 agents kicked in the door. Inside, fluorescent lights flickered on, illuminating a man in a reflective airport vest, his back to them, carefully closing the lid on a bright pink cartoon-emblazoned suitcase. Just as he was about to seal it shut, Maya's voice cut through the air, sharp and clear. "Hands in the air. Step away from the suitcase." The man froze, then slowly turned. His face was devoid of panic, an unsettling calmness in his eyes. "Too late," he whispered, a chilling smile playing on his lips. Without hesitation, Maya fired a warning shot into the ceiling. The deafening crack echoed through the small room. The man dropped to his knees. Scout Unleashed lunged forward, placing himself protectively between the man and the suitcase, barking furious guttural barks that promised retribution. Maya tore open the suitcase. Inside, a little girl, barely conscious, bruised, and with duct tape over her mouth, lay whimpering. But she was alive. Chloe was alive. The rescue of Chloe was a victory, but it was also a stark reminder: this was just one battle won in a much larger war. The broker was still out there, his sinister network still intact. The real fight, the one to dismantle his empire, was only just beginning. The high-stakes rescue of Chloe at Hartsfield-Jackson was a burst of adrenaline, a triumphant roar against the darkness. But the arrest of the mule, the man in the reflective vest, was just a small piece of a much larger, more terrifying puzzle. The real monster, Arthur Sterling, the broker, was still out there, his spider web of evil still humming in the shadows. The relief Maya felt as Chloe was whisked away to safety was quickly replaced by a cold, burning resolve. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Imagine a distinguished professor, revered for his intellect, living in a Georgian manor, surrounded by manicured lawns and whispering pines. Now imagine that same man operating a digital slave market from a hidden vault within those very walls. That was Arthur Sterling. The FBI, acting on the intel gathered from Chloe's rescue and the relentless tracking by Scout, finally moved on Sterling's mansion. It was a textbook raid, silent, precise, overwhelming. Sterling, found calmly sipping tea in his study, surrendered without a fight, a chillingly serene expression on his face. He seemed almost expecting them. But the real shock came when Scout, pulling Maya past shelves of antique books and valuable artifacts, began scratching furiously at a seemingly solid section of the library wall. Beneath a cleverly disguised panel, they found it a steel vault, thick and imposing, secured by a biometric scanner. When the vault finally hissed open, revealing its contents, even the seasoned agents fell silent. It wasn't full of money or weapons. It was a digital catalog of horrors, external hard drives, flash drives, encrypted servers. Tens of thousands of files. Images, videos, meticulous records. Each file represented a child. Each labeled with a name, a date, and a chilling code. This wasn't just trafficking. It was systematic dehumanization. Sterling hadn't merely sold children. He had archived their stolen lives. The most disturbing discovery in the vault wasn't just the sheer volume of data, but a series of meticulous, almost artistic portraits of children. These weren't candid photos. They were posed often with blank expressions, catalogued like specimens. And more chillingly, some of these photos had dates that were in the future. Sterling wasn't just documenting past transactions. He was preparing for future ones. This was a man so utterly devoid of empathy, so confident in his system, that he treated human beings as products to be consumed, archived, and even pre-ordered. It twisted Maya's stomach into knots. With Sterling's arrest and the decryption of his archives, Operation ShadowNet exploded. Teams across the country launched simultaneous rescue missions. Over the next few weeks, dozens of children were recovered from various locations. Apartments, hidden safe houses, even a remote cabin in the Pacific Northwest. Children who had been missing for weeks, months, even years. Leo now reunited with his parents, the Jensens slowly began to heal. Maya visited them often, Scout always by her side. She remembered a quiet afternoon when Leo, who had barely spoken since his rescue, shyly reached out and patted Scout's head. "Good dog," he whispered, the first words spoken without fear. That small gesture, that tentative trust, was worth more than any medal. It was a testament to the quiet power of healing and the unique connection between a child and a dog. Another girl named Isabella, found in a dilapidated trailer in Arizona, had been missing for over a year. She clung to a faded teddy bear and wouldn't speak. But when Scout gently nudged her hand, she looked into his soft brown eyes, and for the first time, a flicker of light returned to hers. These were not just cases anymore. These were children slowly finding their way back to humanity, one gentle touch, one quiet moment at a time. The story of Scout and Operation ShadowNet quickly became a national phenomenon. News channels ran endless segments. Social media exploded with the Scout the Hero. Maya and Scout were hailed as national heroes, invited to speak at Congress, celebrated with parades. But through it all, Maya remained grounded. "It wasn't me," she'd say, always deflecting praise. "It was Scout. He just knew." The outpouring of support was immense. Inspired by Scout's unwavering instinct and Maya's dedication, a new nonprofit was quickly established, the Golden Paw Foundation. Its mission, to fund and train more canine units specializing in human scent detection to combat child trafficking across the country. Scout's legacy wasn't just in the lives he saved, but in the ripple effect of hope he created. He became a symbol, a beacon in the fight against an unseen evil. As the legal proceedings against Sterling and his network began, Maya and Scout knew their direct role was winding down. But the fight was far from over. The trauma inflicted on these children would take years, perhaps a lifetime, to heal. And the insidious nature of the brokers' methods had exposed a vulnerability in their systems, a call to arms for vigilance and compassion. The journey had been long fraught with danger and despair. But through it all, one thing remained constant: the quiet courage of a Labrador whose golden paw had opened the door to justice and whose unwavering heart offered a fragile promise of healing. Where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments below. Before we dive into this heartwarming story, hit subscribe so you'll never miss the most courageous dog tales we share every day. The courtroom in Atlanta was packed. Arthur Sterling, the broker, sat impassively as the judge delivered a sentence of life without parole. The legal victory was undeniable, the network shattered, and dozens of children were now safe. Yet for Maya, true closure wasn't found in a courtroom. It was found in the quiet moments, in the fragile hope returning to the eyes of a child, and in the unwavering loyalty of her partner Scout. The grueling pace of Operation ShadowNet had taken its toll even on a powerhouse like Scout. One morning, Maya noticed a subtle limp, a stiffness in his gait that hadn't been there before. The vet's words were gentle but firm. "His hips are going, Maya. He's pushed himself to the limit. It's time for him to rest." Maya's throat tightened. Scout, her tireless partner, her furry shadow, her truest confidant, deserved nothing less than a peaceful retirement. A week later, Phoenix Sky Harbor threw Scout the retirement party of a lifetime. Fellow officers, airport staff, and even some of the families he'd helped save gathered. There was a banner that read, "Good boy forever." When Maya unclipped his canine harness for the very last time, a tear slipped down her cheek. Scout simply nudged her hand his way of saying, "It's okay, Mama. My work is done." His retirement was filled with sun-drenched naps by the window, long, slow strolls through the park, and movie nights curled at Maya's feet. He was no longer a working dog, but he was still a hero, every gentle snore a testament to a life of service. One crisp autumn Sunday, the Jensens arrived at Maya's home. Leo, now almost 5, burst through the door, his laughter echoing through the house. He ran straight for Scout, who despite his age managed a joyful tail wag. "My hero!" Leo shouted, throwing his arms around the Labrador's neck. That moment, that pure, unadulterated joy, solidified everything. It was the legacy of Scout. The Golden Paw Foundation, inspired by Scout's heroism, flourished. Donations poured in, allowing them to expand training programs, fund research into advanced canine scent detection, and provide support for families affected by child trafficking. Maya, while no longer in active duty, became a leading voice for the foundation, her story with Scout inspiring countless others to support the cause. A year after the dust settled, a new statue was unveiled at Phoenix Sky Harbor. It wasn't grand or imposing. It was a simple, elegant bronze sculpture of a black Labrador, his paw resting gently on an old duffel bag. The plaque beneath read, "In honor of K9 Scout, whose instinct saved a child and broke open a silence we can never afford again." People came from all over to see it. Survivors left small worn toys at its base. Flight attendants paused between shifts, their eyes lingering on the inscription. And every so often, a little boy with bright, hopeful eyes would visit, placing a small plastic airplane at the statue's feet, a silent thank you to his furry guardian angel. Scout's story isn't just about a crime or a rescue. It's about the extraordinary courage found in the most unexpected places. It's about the deep, unspoken bond between humans and animals, and how sometimes the purest instinct can lead to humanity's deepest truths. It's a reminder that heroes aren't always human, and that even in the darkest corners of the world, hope can bark its way through. What do you think Scout would say if he could speak just one sentence to the world? Let us know in the comments below. If Scout's incredible journey moved you, please consider hitting that subscribe button and sharing his story. Let his legacy inspire more heroes. In Fur and Boots and in every neighborhood around us. Together, we can shine a light on the shadows.